Welcome to the Starfish Diaries. I am your host, Liz McKean, and you might have found me from another podcast or from yoga or through coaching or maybe a recovery event, but all that matters is that you're here now, and I am so glad that you're here. On this show, we're going to be talking about identity and self-trust and recovering from all sorts of things, including shame and burnout and squeezing ourselves into what we think good looks like. And I'm going to use a lot of metaphors because that's how I make sense of the world. And I'm hoping that helps you too. I'm really just here to remind you and honestly remind us that there is no such thing as doing life wrong and that you do get to make your life into a place that you want to be. And we're going to figure it out together. So let's go. Hello, my friends. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome back to the diaries. I am obsessed with the fall right now. It is fall and it is just gloomy, but the trees are bright, like as if there were like actually lights in the trees. Some of them are yellow, some of them are pink, some of them are orange. And it's also been rainy today, so there's puddles that everything's reflected in. And I think everybody's pretty crabby about the weather getting cold and rainy and gloomy. And also, I don't love that it gets dark so early, but I really love the fall. I'm really excited about it. And I hated like the season change when I lived here years ago before we lived in Florida and then moved back, because it was so hard to enjoy even the beautiful parts of it, knowing that it was leading to cold and dark for a long time. All I wanted was warm and sunshine. And it was such a indication of a need for the outside to be okay in order for my inside to be okay. And not that this isn't okay. Like, I actually love the outside right now, but I just think I felt so bad all the time inside. And it didn't even occur to me that that could potentially change, or that it was something that I had control over. That part of me wanted to control the outside or just depend on the outside to make me feel a way, because it just seemed so hopeless to do any work on the inside. And now, weather can be whatever weather wants to be. I'm delighted about it because the changes are cool. And it's just another little piece of evidence that multiple things can be true at the same time. That there can be grief, that it's getting darker, it's getting cooler. And there can be joy, that it's getting cozier on the inside, that the leaves are turning, they're beautiful. And that it's all going to come back around. I couldn't hold all that before. And this episode is going to be about why. But before we get into that, I want to take a breath, because that's what we do here on the Starfish Diary. So whatever you're doing, if you're in a place that you're able to kind of shake it out, I would encourage you to do that. If you're not able to do it physically, maybe you do it in your mind. Maybe you shake out your arms, your legs, just shake off whatever energy of the day maybe you don't need to be holding on to anymore. Maybe you unclench your jaw. And then when you're ready, take a deep breath in through your nose and out with a sigh. Yeah, big breath in through your nose. Longer sigh out. Good job. Just do the two. And then breathe like you want to breathe, like your body knows how to breathe, because it does. And how cool is that? So, for a long time now, I have held the belief, the philosophy, the perspective, if you will, that people need and deserve, are entitled to three things: to be our best self, to be able to enjoy our life. And those are choices, safety, and access to the resources that we need. Choices for me means, choices, right? Like that is just like such an indication of freedom to me. I need choices. I'm actually so much better positioned to do a thing I don't want to do when I know I have choice. I can tolerate a lot of discomfort when I know that I am choosing to tolerate that discomfort, whether that's a really hard workout class or I don't know, maybe going to a party that just requires an enormous amount of energy output. And that's really hard for me. And also sometimes there's people drinking at parties and that's just not my favorite. I love to be invited, but don't always love the experience of being in those scenarios. I feel like I'm never going to get invited to a party again now that I'm saying this out loud. It could be, helping out a family member or a friend. Not that that's not something that I want to do, but it's not like going and hanging out in a candy store. I don't think I'd really enjoy doing that either. But I guess what I'm trying to say is when I say choices and when I say freedom, I don't mean in the I'm a toddler and I'm going to stomp my foot and I only want to do things that make me feel great all the time. No, I actually am very comfortable doing hard things, doing easy things, doing unpleasant things, doing wonderful things, doing, acts of service, also doing self-care, and balancing those in a way that I think is human and right for me because I have choice. When I don't have choice, I am much less likely to be able to tolerate discomfort. If I'm in a place and I'm told you are not allowed to take a sip of water, you are not allowed to go to the bathroom, you are not allowed to leave until I say you can leave, that immediately makes me unable to contribute or get anything out of the experience. I will be miserable. I will take away from the fun for anybody else who's there if it is something that people are having fun. And all I would need to know is if you need to drink water, it's there. If you need to go to the bathroom, it's there. If you need to leave, you can leave. And I can tolerate anything. So choice. Again, I use that kind of synonymously with freedom, but for me, it's everything. I can't do life in a way that is true to me, that is effective, that is impactful, unless I know I have choice. Safety is the other piece. And honestly, I don't feel safe if I don't have choice. These all kind of really overlap each other. But when you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which if you're not familiar, it's like essentially a pyramid. And at the bottom are your basic human needs, like food, shelter, just safety. Beyond that, there's actually, I really need to get myself in front of a Maslow's hierarchy diagram so I can represent this in a way that's not totally inaccurate. But essentially, it's like the things that you need to survive are at the bottom, whereas things like enlightenment are at the top. Because you're not going to become enlightened if you don't have a foundation of like being able to survive. And for me, that's just a no-brainer. If I don't feel safe, I'm not going to be able to show up in relationships in a way that is authentic. I'm not going to be able to learn things. I'm not going to get in touch with my inner wisdom or spirituality or whatever it might be next. I'm just only going to be working towards getting safe. I think there was a lot of my life where I didn't feel safe in my own body and mind. That's why I would reach for things like alcohol to numb. And that's why getting that numbing was the most important thing over everything, over relationships, over work, over everything, over things that really should be on that bottom layer of the hierarchy of needs, right? I would do that instead of eating, instead of making sure I was sheltered, because in my mind, safety meant numb. So that was the most important thing. That was survival. That was my entire foundation, my entire bottom of my pyramid was get this booze in me, because that is the only way, because the call was coming from inside the house. Like my unsafe environment was inside of me. And that had to shift before my priorities could shift. So safety doesn't just mean safe from external things. That's absolutely important factor. But coming from an incredibly privileged place of being safe from external things most of the time in my again very privileged life, I still need to keep in mind how important that safety is, because when I'm unsafe inside of me, I mean, really nobody around me is going to be safe, because I'm just going to be making choices entirely in service of trying to feel better, of not feel that fear on the inside. When I teach yoga, or when I teach hypnosis, or even when I'm just coaching someone and we're just talking through goal setting, right? If someone doesn't feel safe with me, if someone doesn't feel like if someone doesn't feel like they can say something that is true to them and have it be received in a way that doesn't feel like a threat to who they are, to their identity, to their hopes and dreams, then we're not going to get anywhere, right? Because safety hasn't been established. There's got to be trust. And we got to work on safety on the inside too, because even if they trust me, if they don't trust them, if you don't trust you, we got to work on that first, right? That's the beauty of things like yoga, things like hypnotherapy, is that we get to work on that first. We don't just immediately say like, hey, let's change this behavior, or let's set this goal for the future. No, we look at like what's in the way. Because honestly, if it was as simple as just doing it, you wouldn't need me. So what we need to do is like get under the surface here, like go look under the hood and figure out like what is making you feel unsafe. Usually the behavior you're trying to change, like if you came to me and we were talking about, I'm finding that I'm going home and scrolling all night long, or I go home and immediately open a bottle of wine instead of going to the gym, or whatever behavior it is that you're like, and I just keep saying I'm going to stop, but I can't stop it. And I need you to help me stop. Like, cool. I want that for you because you want it. And also, we can't just pull the raft out from underneath you without making sure that there's dry land there. The drinking is the raft. The scrolling is the raft. Like there's something that feels like it needs that's your safety right now. So like let's get that. Let's figure out what it is, and then let's dig into that. And that's where those practices like meditation, like hypnosis, like yoga can allow us to access what's under the surface and understand where you need to feel safer in order to change a behavior. And usually there's like a thing under the thing. There's always a thing under the thing. And choice is in there too, right? Because sometimes it's like, all right, well, maybe in the past you've gone and tried to change that behavior, and the way you've tried to change that is you've asked someone to take the choice away from you, like take it from, not let you have it. And if you are like me and have something that is making you that feels like survival, there is no way someone is going to take that from, even if I say, please take this. The amount of times I said, please take this alcohol from me, please, save me from myself. I would find a way. Like we had to deal with the thing under the thing before we could take the raft. And that is a whole separate conversation that we're not going to go as deep into as I just started to. The third thing is access to the resources that you need. And that could look like a lot of different things. That could look like support, like working with, a clinician, a professional, a coach like me. That could look like, again, getting that bottom layer of Maslow's hierarchy taken care of, maybe getting food, getting shelter. It always blows my mind when people talk about, we'd love to help these people with food and with housing. But, they're on drugs. So if they can get off the drugs, then we can help them out with those basic needs. And it's like, in what world is someone who has this one thing that's making them feel better in a life that is scary and painful and isolated and hard, and like there's terrible things happening on the inside of their brain, and there's also terrible things happening on the outside of them, people passing by and calling them names, telling them what terrible people they are. They're maybe sleeping out in the cold. I'm just thinking of all the shit that people go through, and they have this substance potentially that is numbing, you know, maybe the little bit of a break that they have from all the just misery. And you're going to tell them, you know, I'm not going to feed you or give you a home until you get off of that. And it's like, no, dude, you got to give them food and a home in order for them to get off of that, in order for them to even consider getting off of that. You literally are telling someone, not only am I going to take your raft away, I'm going to hold you underwater and then I'll feed you. I'm like, dude, I'm underwater. I can't breathe now. So food and shelter has actually become a far away need. Now I just need oxygen. Wondering how much my metaphors are tracking. Anyways, I also think that when we talk about access, that can again mean those life things, but that can also mean, you know, support. That can also mean fun. That can also mean a job that you enjoy. And I think that like choice, like safety, access to the resource that you need is going to be something that's really unique to you. But for me, that's the trinity of what makes my life, I mean, livable, really. And I will protect those things because, God, I love being a person. I love that I'm sitting here on this couch looking out at the pretty trees and listening to my dog snore. I love that I have a cup of tea. I love that my husband is, you know, going to come home later and smile. I love that there's people that I haven't even met yet that are going to be important to me. I love that I get to do cool work. I love that I feel like I know what I'm here for, you know? Changes all the time, shifts all the time, evolves all the time. And I even love that the trees are beautiful now and they're going to be not for a while. They're going to drop those leaves. And I love that I've experienced loss and I've survived it. And it's been evidence of how hard I've loved. And I can hold grief and joy at the same time because it's just all part of being a person. And I can't do any of those things or love any of those things or show up in any of those ways without doing my darndest to design a life where I have choice, where I have safety, and where I have access to the things that I need. And I will be damned if that is not the thing that I want to make sure I spend my life fighting for others to have. And that looks different in different areas of life, right? Like that sometimes looks like activism. Sometimes that looks like donating money or calling a senator, or in the past, when my nervous system allowed it, it would mean organizing and marching. And, you know, right now it means donating money and food to food banks. And there's very literal ways of standing up for that, especially right now in the world where so many people are being stripped of choice and safety and access. I mean, there's a whole ass, the things that are happening in this world are so painful that it could be easy to just give up. And I think part of that activism, part of fighting, is reminding myself, I should just speak for myself every single day, like what it is that we're even fighting for. When I say I'm against a genocide, I need to be able to look around my life and say there's good things And I am so lucky to have them. Like lucky, like it's just fucking luck, you know? And because I know these are available and these exist are the reasons that I'm going to fight so hard for that to exist elsewhere, where people didn't just happen to be born in a place that they got what I got. And I also think we all need that individually. I think the more every single one of us is able to have that safety, that choice, that access to the things that they need, the better we all are equipped to fight for each other, for people who maybe are having that stolen from them. That's why I do this work too. That's why I'm on this damn microphone, you know, and that's why I'm coaching and teaching yoga and learn hypnotherapy and all these things that can feel very like, okay, this is like top of the pyramid stuff, top of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs stuff. Like, how important could this really be? But it's like, it's so important, because if we don't know that that is possible, and if we don't do that for ourselves, how are we going to show up for each other? And how are we going to make sure that, you know, we're protecting the bottom parts of the pyramid for ourselves? I think the phrase joy is resistance feels really important to me right now. And it makes this work feel really important. And it makes the idea of doing good just to be good is laughable. I used to feel like the most important thing was to be good and for everyone to see how good I was. And now I think the most important thing is to be free and for everyone to see how free I am, because that will hopefully inspire you to seek that out for yourself and then fight for it for everybody else. And I think that's our job. I'm also just one person, again, coming from a lot of privilege. But I mean, we're all one person, right? It's the whole starfish story. And if you make a difference to one, I mean, that's a whole life. So anyway, maybe you think about that a little bit today, what that means to you. What are your things that are the most important for you to live the life that is the most authentically yours? The life that allows you to look around and be like, this is how I can show up as my very best, and I'm going to fight for this for me, and then also for everybody else, because this is what makes it worth it to be a human. And it's fucking hard to be a human, you know? So like we gotta make it worth it. That's our job. For me, it's choice, safety, and access. What is it for you? It's okay if it's the same. You can steal mine. I want you to have those things. But I also would love to hear if there's other things that are important to you. All right, well, that went a little deeper than I expected. But you know, sometimes when you're sitting on your couch, listening to your dog snore, looking at the pretty leaves and the clouds that have parted, so I even can see the moon. Oh, well, that feels like a little bit of a sign. Sometimes that just allows you to feel ready to go a little deeper. So thanks for listening. We're going to take a couple breaths together. And I like to imagine that on the inhale, that breath is filling up all inside of you, wrapping around all the stuff you don't need, right? The energy you don't need. Maybe if there's some anxiety in there that you don't need, maybe, I don't know, there's some resentment. What is it that you're carrying that you just don't need to carry? What is it that you're holding on to that doesn't even belong to you? Like to imagine as I'm breathing in that breath is wrapping around those things, like just grabbing hold of all of it. And then as I exhale, literally I'm just letting it go. It is letting it go, letting it go, letting it go, letting it go, until all that's left inside of me is the stuff that I own that does belong to me. So with that in mind, maybe you close your eyes as long as you're not driving, and take a deep breath in through your nose. Yeah, feel it wrap all around the stuff you don't need, the stuff that doesn't belong to you. Maybe you hold it at the top for a moment. And then out of the mouth, let it go. Yeah, let's do that one more time. Big breath in through the nose. Feel it wrap all around all those things. Every little bit of that energy that's not even yours. It's not yours to carry. Stop carrying it. Just hold on for just another moment. And then let it go. Hell yeah. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being you. Choosing to be here with you. And I'm so grateful to be able to make that choice. I'm so grateful that you made that choice. And see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Starfish Diaries. I want to take a quick moment to thank some of the people who have made this possible. The artwork that I am so in love with is by my friend and the most talented artist, Mo Houston, and you can find her and her work and work with her by going to Joy Scout Studios. I will have that linked in the show notes. And thank you to my incredible editor, Sean Gritters. If you are looking for production support with your podcast, highly recommend that you check him out. His information will also be in the description.